Hi, I'm Mick, your host with the most, and welcome back to Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Monday's edition of the dceu Daily. Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And our headlines today are that Warner Brothers Discovery are about to pause production on the DC Cinematic Universe, the DC Extended Universe, or how we friendly call it, or friendly, should I say? Is it a friendly term? The DCEU. When you hear the word or the letters DCEU these days, it's kind of, that's a bit of a clusterfuck, right? So anyway, excuse me, my frog has a throat in it, or my throat has a frog in it, right? Or my frog has a throat in it. Whatever, right? Let's get on with today's DCEU Daily. So information has reached me that Warner Brothers Discovery have made the decision to pause production on the DCEU. So what does this exactly mean? We must assume, because they've got dates, that Black Adam, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and the Flash movie will all be released on their dates. Now, I don't believe that, but there you have it. That's the dates. They've got us all believing that. I don't believe those films necessarily are going to get released at this moment in time. Who knows? But we've got to assume that Black Adam, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and the Flash movie will release when they say they do, even though they told us that these movies will be released this year in a celebratory year for DC live action. And it didn't happen, did it? So what does it mean? It means they will not be green lighting any more movies for the DCEU. It also most probably means what I was saying and predicting on yesterday's DCEU Daily, that the films that are being greenlit now are not part of the DCEU. They're part of a brand new franchise. The decision has been made. You really think that new Aqualad is part of the DCEU, right? Think about it. He's going to be, let's be honest, he's going to be an African-American actor playing Aqualad, right? Well, think about it. Momoa, Amber Heard, unless he's got a love child, right? It's not happening. So they're moving away from the DCEU. Aqualad may even be the beginning. Who knows? But they can salvage Batgirl. They can move it away from the DCEU, as I said yesterday. You know, Batgirl movie may have never had anything to do with the new timeline in the DCEU. It could be, right? Or it could be that it's nothing to do with it and it's part of another Earth on the multiverse. There's another thing they could be doing here. Because there's going to be a new timeline, that could be a brand new DC Extended Universe. But unfortunately for them, they decided to delete Sidman in their big movie, The Flash, that reboots the entire universe. Well, David Zaslav has made it abundantly clear to Emmerich and Hamada. He wants Superman taken down from that shelf and front and center. He wants Wonder Woman front and center. He wants Batman front and center. But he doesn't just want that. He wants mainstream effing movies that make $1 billion a picture, like Marvel does. When we talk about he's looking for a Kevin Feige, he's not looking to do exactly the same thing as he is. He's looking to make movies that attract DC Comics fans, actual fans who read the comics. How many people who religiously buy a comic every week or are obsessed, have got hundreds of thousands of comics, are going to be attracted to Man of Steel, BVS, let's be honest, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman maybe, yeah? Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League, maybe, because of the accuracy of the third world, right? And the new gods. Apart from that, no. Shazam, maybe, but let's be honest here. When you look at the DCEU, hardcore comic fans are not going to be loving this franchise. So first of all, they need a mainstream DC live-action universe that attracts the comic book fans and the mainstream audience. Guess what franchise does that? Yes, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the DCEU is not fit for purpose, and I believe my source is telling me that it's been indefinitely paused. So it's not the end of DC live action. No, this is the beginning of a brave new world, because the DCEU doesn't work, right? You know it, and I know it, right? We may love a lot of the movies in it. That's probably why you follow me. But we can admit, as a franchise, it doesn't work. It worked a little bit under Zack Snyder because at least Zack had an identity and a vision, right? But from the moment he left, they went and produced Justice League. So they were in trouble from the moment they brought in Snyder, because Snyder should never have been brought in to anchor a mainstream DC universe. What did you think he was going to do? Have Super Pup, right? Do you think he was going to have Super Pup? Or what his bloody name is, right? Do you think every character was going to have their pets, right? No. Zack Snyder is hardcore auteur, and he does some insane, epic things. So why did you give it to him in the first place? Well, you didn't. You gave it to Christopher Nolan, who in turn gave it to Zack Snyder. That's when it all went wrong. Because if you want those boys involved, you say, right, you're in charge of an Elseworld DC live action, right? Awesome. Great. Look how awesome Zack's movies are. Chris's free DC movies. Awesome. But they should never be in charge of a mainstream universe, just like Matt Reeves shouldn't be in charge of a mainstream universe. That's why the Batman isn't mainstream. It's part of its own earth. So no one can say, ooh, this is not like the DCEU one. This is not like the MCU. Well, it's not. It's the man's own world. He can do whatever he wants in it. Everyone understands that. So it's okay to have a dark, realistic take on Batman when you're not part of a mainstream universe. At last, they made a sensible decision. And so we don't know what happens to the remainder of the DCEU movies that have actually been made. Now, they're not going to come out and tell you, oh, we're pausing the DCEU. Guess what? Because I assume they're planning on releasing Black Adam, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and The Flash. I assume they're planning on releasing them, but I can't tell you that with any certainty. So if they are planning on releasing stuff that they've paid for, right, and hoping to make top dollar from them, right, they're probably going to not tell you that they're pausing production on the DCEU and they're developing a brand new universe. Because there's no way in hell an Aqualad movie has anything to do with the DCEU. It's not plausible, right? I think we can agree on that. I think we can agree that something has to be done about the DCEU. Excuse me, I'm getting blocked up. It's first thing in the morning for me. I partied out Iron Apple last night. You must excuse me. But they're the facts. That the DCEU most probably is being paused, and anything you hear being greenlit. Wonder Twins, nothing to do with the DCEU. Aqualad, nothing to do with the DCEU. And I'm sure Batgirl will be moved away from the DC Extended Universe on whatever plan they're going for then. But Batgirl, definitely they keep on talking about it. It's clear that film will be released. Now, when will that film be released? This is interesting. People say Batgirl can't be released because of Flashpoint not being released. I don't believe that. I believe this film is standalone, in fact. Now, we know that Keaton last year in an interview compared his role in The Flash to Multiplicity. That means there's different versions of this Michael Keaton Batman. That means you can have a version of the Michael Keaton Batman that isn't part of Batman 89, and it's just a variant. So this could be another variant. This could be a variant Earth from the multiverse, right? So Batgirl can happen while having nothing to do with the clusterfuck, which is the existing DCEU. So they're going to move away from the DCEU. One way or the other, they were going to kind of do that with a brand new rebooted franchise anyway. But you can't do that by deleting Superman, right? Look, we understand, right? Here on this channel, I understand what the customer wants and doesn't want. I'm on Twitter, right? This is my job, right? As well as writing, directing, and performing in my own place here in Cyprus and developing the first English-speaking dramas here on Cypriot TV. It's my job to come onto YouTube and know what I'm talking about. I spend a lot of my spare time on Twitter. I know what people say. What do you want the most? You want Henry Cavill's Superman back, right? Some of you can't fucking stand Man of Steel. Some of you can't fucking stand BVS. But you understand that Henry Cavill is a Shakespearean trained British actor and he's a great Superman and he looks the piece, right? You don't really care if his story in the DCEU continues or not, but you want him as Superman. So do I, because he's perfect. You're probably not going to find anyone more perfect than Henry Cavill. The question about this is, though, is his Superman tainted? Because I believed after I saw Justice League, I thought, Jesus, Ben's Batman and Henry's Superman are so tainted after this. The way they had Supes cringily smiling, the way Batman cringily smiled, you know, when Superman turns up like he's in love with Superman and he wants to make love to him. It was absolutely embarrassing. And I thought, no, this is tainted. They're going to have to start again. And it was a bigger disaster than they ever thought Zack's Justice League was ever going to be. Now, they thought because of the discourse around BVS and MOS, they thought, if we do Justice League, this will save us. But it didn't. It didn't reset anything. It made things worse. The damage would have been lesser if they actually released Zack's Justice League as a 2.5 hour, maybe 2 hours, 50 minutes epic, right? People would have complained again. People would have said this and that. But it would have actually made probably around 850 million. Maybe if people kind of liked it, and who knows, maybe it would have made more. But it would have been a solid affair. It wouldn't have been controversial. There would have been no investigation by Ray Fisher. They literally, by moving away from Zack so dramatically, Android 108XX. All right, Mick, good morning. So, am I boring you? Is that why you're yawning? Sorry about that. But yeah, so by moving away, basically they've moved away from Zack so quickly, they ripped the elastoplast off so quickly, but it didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. People said, where's the nightmare future? We saw it. We want to know what the bloody nightmare future is. Even people who didn't like seeing the nightmare future, and they didn't like it because it wasn't explained and it was a random moment. They wanted to know. So they made things much worse for themselves. And so Zaslav Discovery have come in and said, you know, someone has to say enough's enough. And that's what they're doing now. They're moving away. But, you know, they understand that Henry Cavill's Superman is very, very popular. They understand that Henry Cavill, in the right movie, with the right director and the right writer or writer-director, can make an awesome Superman movie. Android 118XX. No, just woke up. Good morning to you. So we know the DCEU is not fit for purpose, and that's why WB Discovery are pausing it. And anything greenlit in the future will have nothing to do with the franchise. But as I've already said earlier, the question marks now are on the remainder of these DC movies. I suppose if you restructure Black Adam, it doesn't have to be a DCEU movie, right? Shazam's difficult because the first film had so many Easter eggs, but you could realign it to step. I don't know. Listen, it's difficult. It's not easy. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But for now, the DCEU will be paused, and they're looking to develop a brand new DC live-action universe, and anything green-lit from here on in, including Aqualad, including Wonder Twins and all of that, will have nothing to do with the DCEU. I think we are heading for maybe a Young Justice cinematic universe, or maybe that's just for HBO Max. We'll have to wait and see. Their plans will be revealed sooner or later. Right, today is a glorious day if you're a fan of the Batman. Android 108XX. How was breakfast? Lovely, thank you. 2 bits of toast with butter. Lovely. 80s rewind at times 90. Morning, bud. Morning to you. So, today is a glorious day if you're a fan of the Batman because it's been released on HBO Max. So you should be celebrating that, watching it again and again, talking about it with your friends on the internet, but not communicating with people who have hate in their hearts, who keep on telling you your movie was a flop because it didn't make $1 billion. Just ignore them. I can't wait till tomorrow when I can rent the Batman, right? From Amazon UK. Even though I'm in Cyprus, I can use Amazon UK. I'm going to be watching that, studying it, and then doing a rewatch review here on my channel, Movies TV Man, and I will do that live, and I'm looking forward to communicating with you my final thoughts on the Batman when I rewatch it, because I don't want to do that. It was ages ago, right? I've literally forgotten so much shit about that movie. I don't keep details in my head, unfortunately. I don't have a photographic memory, but I'm looking forward to rewatching it and doing a rewatch review. So it's a celebratory day and a week and a month for people who'll be able to binge watch the Batman on HBO Max. So very, very exciting. Now, let's talk about the Batman box office. It was never going to make $1 billion, and I'll explain to you why. Now, if you're part of the intelligent element of my subscriber base, you'll understand why. It's very different. It's stylized. It's 3 hours long. That's one of the reasons it didn't make $1 billion. There's not much action in the movie, so you have to be a cinemaphile to really, really get this movie right and understand the Batman comics. There's not much action. There's a lot of dialogue. It's great. It's like watching Shakespeare in a way, right? It's awesome, but it was never going to be for everyone. But 750 million mean that a lot of people went to see it again and again. Android 108 nominations. Young Justice Cinematic Universe, actually a good idea. I agree. You have the grown-up superheroes with serious movies, and then the Young Justice with lighter tone. Yeah, and if they do it, I think they shouldn't base the DCEU on the older versions. They should create brand new versions. There's things they're going to have to do here. Obviously, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman may have to continue because of her popularity, but Gal may want to step away from that character as well after Wonder Woman 3. So that may be advantageous to them. We'll wait and see. They could pull popular elements out the DCEU and use them, I suppose. So it will be interesting. So that's why the Batman was never going to make $1 billion, right? It was never $1 billion movie. I noticed I follow a verified from EW.com complaining that it didn't make $1 billion. And no matter how long you left it away from HBO Max, it was never going to make $1 billion, right? Maybe if you left it there for 6 months, it may trickle onto $1 billion eventually. But let's be honest about it. It was never going to happen. If it didn't happen in 46 days, it wasn't going to happen in 146 days. Now, here's the crappy comparison that I hate from Snyderverse fans and stans with their propaganda. Now, I am a Snyderverse fan. I love Zack's DCEU, but I don't talk nonsense. I'm a DC fan, an all-round DC fan. Right. So this is the thing. First of all, people who say that BVS made just under 900 and why wasn't that enough, I'll explain to you why. Because Zack Snyder's budget for that film was quadruple the budget that Matt Reeves spent on the Batman. How much you spend on a movie is very important, right? Batman vs. Superman also had Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in it, right? This film should have hit 2 billion, not 880 or whatever it made, right? That's not what Warner Brothers targeted for it. BVS was an underwhelming movie in the box office. I love BVS. I think it's a work of art. It has no place in a DC live-action mainstream universe. But in my opinion, it's a brilliant film. So, BVS getting that budget, right, that global box office isn't something to celebrate, right? It should have got lots more because of the characters that were in it. 80's rewind times 90. So I understand we're going to still have a DCU, just it's getting restarted, correct? Basically, it won't be the DCEU. It will not be the DCEU you know. So they're not going to call it the DCEU because that term is even tainted, right? It'll be a brand new, connective, mainstream DC live-action universe. Nothing to do with Zack Snyder's universe, with the Hamadaverse. That's all going to be paused. That's gone because the brand is damaged. And even in business, one thing you have to understand, once a brand's been damaged, you can't salvage it, right? You can try, but they've tried to salvage the DCEU. They've done it in wrong ways and damaged the brand even worse. So that's correct. So BVS should have made around No Way Home money and Force Awakens money. And everybody knows that. Only the few deluded people on Twitter embarrassingly embarrassingly telling people who stand the Batman that their movie's a flop and their movie was a success. Sorry, it's the other way around. So, let's look at the Batman's box office. We've done that loads of times on here. I'll say the same thing I've said a billion times before. The Batman is a first movie in a brand new Batman franchise, if they actually greenlight a sequel. Let's wait and see. That's a question mark right now with what Zaslav is saying, but we'll wait. The Batman made more money than Superman the movie. The Batman made more money than Batman 89. The Batman made more money than Superman Returns. The Batman made more money than Batman Begins. The only first movie in a DC franchise that it didn't beat was the Joker movie, because there'll be more of that franchise. So in fact, it's up there with the Joker movie as being one of the most successful first DC movies of all time. Facts, and your propaganda can't change that. Android 118XX. I remember the first BVS trailer did really well. The amount of viewership for that trailer was really impressive, of course, because Batman and Superman were in it. Of course, it was a DC movie. What do you expect? Nobody knew, but they were selling that movie the wrong way. They were pretending that that was going to be a popcorn chomping fight between Batman and Superman. That was not what that movie was. You only see them fighting for 9 minutes, and the movie wasn't sold. Honestly, if that movie was sold as honestly as Logan, look, it's an indie type movie. It's doing this and that. People would have said, okay, so when they went to the cinema, they wouldn't have gone, what the fuck? This is not what we were sold. A lot of the problem with BVS was its actual marketing. I don't think this movie was ever going to please the people it didn't please. However, they sold it, but the controversy would have been a lot less if they sold it honestly. And that's my opinion on that. And to people who don't like that opinion, tough. But, so, the Batman is a hit. It was never making $1 billion. Now, he may have to compromise with Zaslav and Discovery, not to make the movie as long, and actually make it a bit more of an action adventure. Maybe that's something that Matt won't be happy to do, and that may be a deal breaker for Matt Reeves, and that might be the end of him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It may be that this week the Batman is announced for a sequel, and I'm wrong about that conversation. We'll have to wait and see. But the Batman was a success. Now, going back to my original conversation about the DCEU being paused, that really shouldn't come to any surprise to any of you. We've been here a long time. Can the DCEU be saved? Android 108XX. That what I thought at first. Thought the movie was all about the action between Superman and Batman, so I was surprised when watching the movie. Exactly. I was pleasantly surprised, but most people watching wasn't, unfortunately. John, they should never have shown Doomsday in the BVS trailer. That was a point of, that didn't help because people weren't even happy that Doomsday was in the movie. And people started analysing what Doomsday looked like in the CGI, that he didn't look like the Doomsday from the comics. In fact, Zack confirmed he isn't even the Doomsday from the Death of Superman story. But once you do it, once you have Doomsday killing Superman, it's done. How can you do it again, right? In the same franchise. It can't be done. And that's the kind of story you should be copying and pasting in live action, right? Now, Doomsday gets to look a bit like the comic book version later on in the movie when he kind of gets killed and he comes back and he starts growing the bones, but it's not enough. I think he looks great. I don't think it's bad CGI at all, but he looks nothing like he does in the comics. Android 118XX. John True. Android 108XX. Do you think they showed too much in the trailers? Well, they did show a lot of the film. I think, if you think about it, they showed most of the action from the film. Yeah, they did the same with Man of Steel. That's what the marketing department were doing at that time, which made fucking amazing trailers, but they did give away a lot. And that's who was working at the company at the time. Maybe Zack was doing the trailers at the time. I don't know what was going on there, but they were showing a lot. But the showing a lot isn't the reason that BVS failed. Failed with the audience, failed with the mainstream, failed at the box office. It failed because it wasn't the movie the mainstream wanted to see, and it failed because they marketed it dishonestly. 80s Rewind at times, 90s mix. So Black Adam, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, and The Flash are still going to connect to each other. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen ultimately, because I think The Flash is a problem. Ezra Miller is a problem. So you may never see that movie. You may see that movie. That movie may be reshot and be totally different and cut out the multiverse strategy. I don't know what they're going to do. I think they will do things with Black Adam, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and Shazam Fury of the Gods to make sure it has nothing to do with The Flash. If I was them, that's what I would do. If they can save those other movies, I'm not talking about The Flash, but the other movies, and connect them away from the DCEU somehow, maybe they can do them. At that moment, at this moment in time, I can't give you a genuine answer to your question because I simply don't know what they're planning. But they are in a mess. From the moment they delayed The Flash, for whatever reason that was, there was a huge problem. And we all know that. So I've lost my train of thought now. I can't remember what I was talking about. So you can't have a franchise. You can't have something that's so damaged in the public conception. We saw that people didn't brave the pandemic to see the Suicide Squad. We know that Birds of Prey was a flop. We know creatively Wonder Woman 84 was a problem, right? The Suicide Squad was a pretty good movie. Okay, fair enough. And that's it. You know, since Shazam, things have been pretty problematic apart from the Suicide Squad. And you can argue whether James Gunn's humor is over the top and cringy, but it's still a pretty solid DC movie, right? But there's no consistency. As they said in that Variety article, you may have some movies that have done well, but your brand recognition is terrible. You've left Superman and characters like Superman, elite characters like him, you know, to die. And that's unforgivable. Totally unforgivable. So this brand has no consumer confidence. As I've been saying, even when I was excited about the Flash movie and the multiverse strategy, I was saying that. Andrew and 108XX, I think showing too much of the action in the trailers may have an effect on the movie because the movie was surprisingly more story than action. When the action comes, people have seen it in the trailer. No, I don't believe that. I think, look, clearly it's an issue, but I don't think it's the reason we had discourse on Twitter that there was so much hate for this movie. People literally didn't like the movie. Literally didn't like the movie. We've got to be clear about that. But it was missold in its marketing as well as something different. It was more story than action, but people didn't think that from the marketing. That's why mostly they showed action, right? They wanted to lie about what the movie was because they were scared of what Snyder was doing. But it was too late by that point. Now they've got the same problem again with this Flash situation, with this multiverse strategy. They've made the mistakes with the multiverse strategy as they did with Justice League. They thought they could shine a turd. Basically, that's what they were trying to do with Justice League. Shine a turd. And not that I think Zack Snyder's Justice League is a turd, but for many people it is. And for the studio, it was a problem, right? So that's what they were trying to do. They tried to grab the DCEU and reboot it. Instead of saying, do you know what? Instead of going to all this trouble of doing Flashpoint, right? Let's just bin the DCEU and start with this brand new timeline we're going to set up anyway. Android 118XX. Who would you want to direct a Trinity movie? I would want a director and a comic book writer to do it together. Someone who understands these three iconic DC characters. And again, it doesn't have to be a famous director, Android 118XX. There's some people who could do it, but I think maybe there's an indie director there. Maybe there's someone coming out of film school. Anyone who actually understands these characters should direct it. And someone who can appeal to the mainstream audience. Business is business. To some, mainstream movies are a dirty word. But as you know, the Harry Potter movies were mainstream. But they fucking went dark in the end, didn't they? I'm rewatching them now. Amazing. So sweet and adorable in the first two movies. Then it goes dark. Like real life. It starts sweet. And then you really experience how hard life can be. That's what the Harry Potter story is. So you can do that as well. John, The same with the Amazing Spider-Man 2 trailer. They show pretty much the whole movie in the trailers. Yes, when they're not confident about a movie, John, that's what they do. 80s rewind at times 90s. I was so excited in January with all these amazing DC movies coming out, and now I'm so disappointed. What a roller coaster ride. 80s rewind at times 90s. I was where you were. 4 DC movies in 1 year. The Batman, Black Adam. Wow. The Flash, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. At last, we had a direction. At last, we had a multiverse strategy. At last, we were going to fix what was problematic. What happens all of a sudden? They delayed 2 movies. Ezra Miller has lost the plot. And we're back to where we started. And it's very difficult. But they can fix it by just saying, you know, it's damaged. The DCEU is damaged. That appeals to more than just Android 118 XX. Exactly. We need a director and a top comic book writer to work together, which they should have done in the first place. Yeah. From the moment they chose Nolan. And the only reason they chose Nolan is because he was popular with Batman stands for the Dark Knight trilogy. They didn't think about it long term. They didn't think, oh, he's going to go and get Zack Snyder. Are you sure about that, Chris? Do you think that's a good idea, Chris? We're trying to build a mainstream. We want people to watch this. No. As soon as Snyder was announced, I've got a terrible throat this morning. There's so much dust outside, it's going in my throat. As soon as Zack Snyder, who I didn't know who he was at the time, was announced for Man of Steel, my Twitter feed was so negative, right? Because they hated him because of Watchmen, right? Whether that's right or wrong, people hate him, right? The mainstream audience don't like Snyder. Comic book stands don't like Zack Snyder. But you went and brought him on to do Superman. Now, I love what he did, but it's not for everyone. And that's the problem. And this is where it all went wrong. That's not who you choose to do a mainstream DC Extended Shared Universe. And you know it. And then you had the cheek to binge Superman, blame Superman for Justice League, and shelve him. Who remembers the Hollywood Reporter article where they said Superman's going to be rested? Wow. They actually came out and said it officially by the Hollywood Reporter. How embarrassing is that? What did resting Superman actually accomplish? What did driving Snyder away from his vision before he finished it accomplish? It made the situation worse. I don't know if I've read this one, but I'll read it again. Android 180 XX. Exactly. We need a director and a top comic book writer to work together, which they should have done in the. I think I have read that one out. But anyway, nothing wrong with airing you again, is there? But yeah, we need to start again. And I'm sure that's what they're doing. If I was them, that's what I would be doing. Android 180 didn't know people disliked Zack even before MOS. At that time, he had a really good reputation. No, he didn't. He had a good reputation for Dawn of the Dead. He had a good reputation for 300. Watchmen tainted him forever. Because even though a lot of us who haven't read the comics, Watchmen comics, graphic novels, love that film and think it's a pretty great accomplishment, the people who read the comic didn't like what he did. I don't know why. But that's what it is. I don't think even Alan Moore, who created Watchmen, even likes that film. I don't know. But people were never happy. Snyder was going to make Man of Steel. There's no question about that. John, probably some people wanting colourful Superman movie, and Man of Steel was not that. Well, listen, Man of Steel does things in a certain way. But even though some people didn't like Man of Steel, in the end, it finishes, thanks to Christopher Nolan and David Goyer, it finishes with a nod and a wink. Welcome to the planet. Brilliant. Ending, we continue the banter in Man of Steel 2. There was never a Man of Steel 2, it was BVS, because Man of Steel didn't make $1 billion. So they decided to let Snyder do BVS, but he didn't have the same plan they did. So he made the situation worse, even though I love BVS. We ended Man of Steel with a nod and a wink, right? Just like in the Christopher Reeve days, right? He smiles. Henry smiles at Lois. So it begins. Where did all that go? Because when we see him again in BVS, he's fucking miserable, isn't he? And he's killing everyone in the desert. Well, he's not really, but you know what I mean. You know, anyone must have known you can fuck. It's a bit like what Kevin McAllister says in Home Alone. You can mess with a lot of things, but you can't mess with kids on Christmas. You can mess with a lot of things, but you can't mess with Superman and his fans. 80s rewind at times, 90s. What stinks is by rebooting, you're going to have to recast these characters with new actors and actresses' personality. I like some of them as they are now, and it stinks to have to reboot them. Well, they could have enact a situation where not everyone will be recast. We'll have to wait and see what they're going to do. Yes, you're right, it does stink. But I think this is the only way 80s rewind in the timeline. I really do. I don't see another way unless they stumble on such a popular DCEU movie. But the Flash movie, which sounds like people enjoyed it at least and think it's absolutely nuts in all the good ways, you know, deleting Henry Cavill's Superman cannot be accepted. Abraham Herrera. Good morning, Abraham. Don't matter anymore. The world is about to come to an end. Abraham, it does matter. As long as there's life, there's hope. The world isn't going to come to an end. Please don't talk silly. We're talking about movies and television. This is the DCEU Daily, right? So this is not one of those chats where I want to talk about anything else, but that was a bit of a silly thing to say, wasn't it, Abraham? Anyway, so it does matter. Don't listen to Abraham. And we will reboot the DCEU. We will move away from the DCEU. The DCEU is being paused, and they have a problem. And I was the only YouTuber telling you from the moment the Flash was delayed that I could smell something icky, right? Icky. You lot were telling me it's VFX. You believed the propaganda. I told you not to believe it. Andrew at 108XX. Then why the hell would WB get Zach on board for something this huge? Why get someone whose comic book wasn't received positively? That was a sign that he wasn't the one. WB didn't bring him on. Christopher Nolan brought him on, and they trusted his judgment when they shouldn't. But their mistake was putting Christopher Nolan in this Godfather role. That's the mistake, right? You had lots of people who had a vision for what DC could have been for a mainstream audience. Now, like it or not, leave Jeff Johns on his own to create his own cinematic universe, he would have nailed it. Like he nailed it in his Smallville episodes. Like he's nailing it with Stargirl, right? That's the truth. Now, you can throw Wonder Woman 84 at him and other things at him, but he has written some great live-action material, and we will know it. Give it to Bruce Timm or anyone who understands these characters. Something special could have happened. Android 108XX, comic book movie Watchmen. So at the end of the day, we know the mistakes. No point going back to the mistakes. We need to talk about the solution and not what caused the problem in the first place. Because I think there's lots of intelligent people talking about movies today who understand that the franchise isn't fit for purpose. But it's fixable because you can just, which is what they should have done from the beginning, move away from the DCEU. That's all they had to do. Because Zach was the DCEU. But you tried to rebrand somebody else's brand. Do you understand? That was never, ever going to work. So if you just move away from it, and I think a Young Justice scenario, whether they're attempting to do this or not, is great. Because they've got Leslie Grace, they've got Sasha Calle, they've got KP Appa, right? And the other girl from Wonder Twins. They've got Xolo for Blue Beetle. They've literally got a Young Justice there ready. They've got Aqualad, right? It's there. Don't cast these people in more DCEU projects. Leave the DCEU. If you have to show those other DCEU movies you've already made, release them. Just fucking release them. And if by accident they become successful, then that's something else. You can kind of do that and kind of make kind of this Young Justice franchise part of that. But you need to start doing something else that makes money. Because, yeah, we watch stuff to be entertained. They're giving us stuff to be entertained to make money, right? There's a DC live action universe because it should be the most profitable, potentially the most profitable IP in the studio. but they haven't. They haven't done anything with it. I don't see the DCEU as maximizing the potential of these DC characters. Android 118 Dubx, say if we restart the whole DC movie franchise apart from, right, now I'm confused. Say if we restart the whole DC movie franchise apart from Reeves Batman, would you bring back Jeff Johns again to start the new DC movie franchise? It would upset a lot of people. I do believe that he could do something special. The problem is he's been tainted by the stuff Ray Fisher has said about him. John, I would turn Ezra's Flash into a different actor at the end of the Flash movie. Could be a bit like Doctor Who, couldn't it? But yeah, that's one way of doing it. That's one way of salvaging that movie. Abraham Herrera, something special did happen though. Not enough people appreciated it. Yes, that's the problem. It's not what DC comic book fans want. It's not what the mainstream audience want. You can't force people to like something. 80s Rewind at times 90. The Flash movie is so important, in my opinion, because it can continue in one direction or start anew in another direction. I feel this movie is the starting point to a new or continued DCEU. Well, that was the idea. But clearly by its delay and the problems with Ezra, they can't do that anymore, my friend. And the DCEU is finally poison, the poison I've been saying, and they must forget about it. A new DCEU, an old DCEU, forget about it. Start again with something new that's not connected to any of that shit. 80s Rewind at times 90s. I really want to Grant Gustin take over as the Flash from Ezra Miller. He's very good on the CW. Well, the only way you could do that is by getting rid of the DCEU and implementing Arrowverse as the brand new movie franchise. John, did you see the Doctor Who trailer? Yes, John. Isn't it a bit sad that a next time trailer was more exciting than an episode of Doctor Who? So I am excited with who's coming back. I still think he'll do them a disservice, but I suspect RTD is going to co-write this episode, and those people coming back is his plan. And I think what happened on Doctor Who Flux was his plan. This is part of the Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf Productions and Sony TV reboot plans. But yes, so going back to my main headline, the DCEU will be paused. No more DCEU movies will be greenlit. I do apologise like I did yesterday. The Sun. Let me see if I can get rid of it. I think that's better, isn't it? Is it better? Can we do the same here? I need a studio. I actually need a studio, don't I? Wow, that Sun was really bad, wasn't it? So, yeah, as far as I know, the DCEU has been paused. What does that mean? They will not greenlight any more DCEU movies. They will try and take what they've got already and what they're greenlighting and create a brand new DC live action universe. Now you're saying, hang on a minute, Mick, they were rebooting it anyway with the Flash movie. The Flash movie had a terrible production. It had issues. Ezra Miller publicly has embarrassed the good name of the Flash character, embarrassed the good name of Warner Brothers Studios. They did use, believe it or not, Warner Brothers Pictures used to have a great name in the industry before they became run by a bunch of donkeys, right? So, you know, that's the problem now. That was the plan, and the plan has gone AWOL. So you can't. I've been involved in business. I'm involved in entertainment. I understand that as much as I love so many films in the DCEU, I myself love the Snyderverse, right? But I'm not a deluded nut job. I'm a nut job more than deluded. I can see when the party is over and we've got to go to a new party. You go to a party, right? You go to a club. There's a big fight. You know, you kind of started it because you kissed someone's girlfriend, right? So you just sneak away so no one actually knows you started the problem. 80s Rewind, the times 90s. I do hope and pray with the new DC direction of movies, they do make them connect. I like the connection with all the movies. Listen, we've seen how successful financially the MCU has been. Even Arrowverse has done pretty well with connecting things. So standalone movies are not the future. You can have them. You can have them in an Elseworld scenario. You can allow Todd Phillips in his Black Label franchise to do that, although even his universe is going to be connected. Abraham Herrera, what do you make of the cryptic posts from various people, including David Ayer, who's been posting regularly. Right. It's interesting, Abraham. Abraham Herrera, just trying to make waves, I guess. I don't know. They could be trying to make waves. They, the air cut may be released. Snyder may be allowed to make his... I have no idea. But if that's the case, then he can keep the DCEU. They can do whatever they want with it. It will be away from the mainstream universe, and that's fine. But we need a mainstream universe that attracts the people, that attracts the MCU, that attracts the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, right? That's where the money is. Now, I know that seems to be a dirty word, but this is a business. You can be entertaining and make great art while making money at the same time, right? And they are businesses. They have wages to pay. It's the truth. And the reason they make DC movies is to make money, because it's the most valuable IP potentially at the studio. And they have to do better. Everybody knows it's a mess. We were going to get a Black Adam movie this summer. Why aren't we getting it? It's not because they couldn't do reshoots for 2 weeks at the same place. GOG3 was shooting. That's bullshit, right? They've moved that movie. They've brought Shazam! Fury of the Gods forward. And they've moved Aquaman. And The Flash has had the biggest delay. I think when you can smell shit, you should say you can smell shit. Abraham Herrera, yeah, so what you're saying is they'll start a new main DC universe, right? That's correct. That's just right thing to do, I think. Yeah, because it's tainted, Abraham. So I still fight to restore the Snyderverse, because that could be somewhere else, right? Give him back his DCEU, but it ain't going to be a mainstream universe. He can do whatever the fuck he wants with it, with HBO Max, theatrically, whatever, right? But Zack Snyder should never be involved with a mainstream universe. Even Zack Snyder knows that. He's even said he doesn't give a shit about the mainstream audience. Well, sorry, Zack. The studio do. Well, at least they do now. Android 118XX. How did WB get the Harry Potter movie franchise right and not the DC? Right, let me explain something to you, right? WB were run by different people. And let me remind you, when they were first talking to Joe Rowling, they wanted the witchcraft, they wanted Hogwarts to be an American school. And Joe said, no, it is not going to be an American school. She fought them and she got their own way. Imagine a fucking wizarding school in America, right? How fucking dumb would have that been? So Joe really had to fight them. She made sure they brought in good creatives like David Yates and the other guy who directed the first two movies. And they created a good team there. And it was the faith in the actual original material that made that successful. And it's one of the best franchises in the world. Now, unfortunately, Jo has tainted her own legacy with all the stuff she's saying. And I don't want to talk about whether I agree with her or not. It's not about that. She's tainted herself. Say it once, keep on saying it. Now, a lot of people hate her, and you can't, basically, I think Grace Randolph's been asking the question, should Jo sell everything to Warner Brothers and say, I've got nothing to do with it anymore? And even then, she's the creator. She'll still be problematic and a hindrance to the franchise, just less of a hindrance. So that's my views on that. I am rewatching Harry Potter right now. I'm on the Chamber of Secrets. Absolutely fantastic. They really did do a good job. And this is from me, who doesn't read books, so brilliant. But yeah, I think this was always, look, you don't even really have to be an expert on business to understand that the DCEU is tainted. I feel bad. I talk to so many DC fans. You, like me, were expecting 4 amazing movies this year. And yet, and again, we've been let down. Abraham Herrera, I never want Zack to be in charge of DC. I think most of us just wanted him to finish what he started because they worked on the entire arc for that story. It's not good to leave things unfinished. Of course not. It's a mess. He would have been finished by now if they just let him finish. Abraham Herrera, especially for a corporation like Warner. Yeah, listen, the wrong people are running it. And right now, David Zaslav has not removed those people, which is astonishing. Maybe he thinks he can police these people. So it's astonishing. The mess carries on. Hopefully now we've got new leadership, something can happen here. The question also has to be, do I trust David Zaslav and Discovery? They're talking a good game, but will they do what they're saying? And will they do it in the right way? Well, it all depends who they put in charge. So if they put in charge someone like Bruce Timm, I'm jumping all over the room. I'm going to need to change my boxer shorts. I'm so fucking excited. If they don't bring in Bruce Timm and they keep Hamada there, for example, then I don't really care. Because I know nothing's going to change. And I know that Christina Hodgson's going to write most of the bloody movies, right? Apparently people like the Flash movie. Maybe she's actually done a really good job. But the headlines this morning are that the DCEU has been paused by Warner Brothers Discovery, and anything green-lit in the future will be part of a brand new DC live-action universe. This has been the DCEU Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you tonight when I'm back with Movies TV Mad Live. And who knows what we get to talk about tonight. Android 118 XX would be really interesting what Discovery does if he does manage to put DC in the right direction and getting positive outcomes from the movies, and deserves a statue, yeah, because we've never actually had anyone since Superman the bloody movie or even Superman 2 that's actually done something that connects with everyone. Balconator, I heard Discovery wants to find a Kevin Feige type of guy for DC. Do you think they can? Well, there's only one. I said this in a video on my Movies TV Mad Daily the other day. There's only one Kevin Feige. There's no one else like him. No one in that role is as successful as he is. If it was me, I'd make sure to offer him anything he wanted to come and run the DC live action universe. But he probably won't. It's probably not a reality. There is no other Kevin Feige. But someone like Bruce Timm and maybe a business person could do it together, right? So there are ways of doing this. 80s Rewind at times 90s. Mick, tell me, in your opinion, what movies kicks off the new DCEU? Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. What a question that is. Well, I think Blue Beetle would be a good one. You want to start off with a little movie. Do you remember how Iron Man was a little movie, right? No one really thought it was a big deal. It was the launch of Marvel Studios, an independent, live-action comic book company, which was groundbreaking at the time, but people didn't have a high expectancy. Obviously, Robert Downey Jr. being in it was a bit controversial at the time, but it worked. So I think Blue Beetle or Aqualad or something like that would be great, because basically there's not a high expectation. Of course, there's fans of those characters. You bring in the big guns later on. Maybe you start with the big guns in the background, right? And slowly bring them in. They're basically, the first movie is part of an already established universe. Superman's already there. Batman's already there. Justice League's already there. The Hall of Justice, Watchtower. It's all there. You don't have to world build it up slowly. It's already there. And that, my friend, is how I would kick off a brand new DC live action universe. So please join me later tonight for Movies TV Mad Live. This is the place to be, no matter that we only get 10, 15 people at a time on a live stream. You're still hosted by someone who will update you with everything in entertainment, especially in DC live action. Someone who communicates with people who know what they're talking about from the inside. So you've made a very wise decision, even if I do say so myself, to subscribe to moi. So I will see you tonight. I want to thank every single one of you for coming into this live stream, for the 3 people who like this video, for everyone in the history of this channel for the past 3 or 4 years, or however long it's been, that's come in, liked, watched, subscribed. I'm really, really grateful, because you can't do live streams without you people. You make it special. I'm just here to react to what you're saying. You're absolutely wonderful. I look forward to it. When I think about doing the streams, I get excited because of you guys. We are now a community. So in a community, this is what we do. When we're talking and someone negative comes in, or maybe a troll or a bot, we don't respond to them. We ignore them. We allow them to make their noise, and we let them go. That's all we do, because we are not here to create vendettas. We are not here to shout at each other. We are just here to celebrate what we love and constructively talk about what we don't love. So until I see you tonight, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. See you again soon. Thank you, everyone.